when we started the panel, there was Abdul Malik and myself and Amit and John, so it was an Israeli, an American, an Arab meeting in Munich. Sounds like a bad joke. So, and to introduce you the panel very quickly, Alan Patrikoff is actually the father of venture capital, or at least one of the fathers. He created Apex. How long ago, Alan?
1970.
1970. So you are in this business
43 years.
43 years. Now we know why you have all this white hair. Howard Morgan created, he was professor in Wharton, you are still professor in Wharton, a VC, manager of companies. Don't be misled by his humble appearance. How about that as a compliment?
Perfect.
Abdul Malik Jaber is my favorite enemy. He was the chairman of Paltel. He's one of the most astute telcos people. He was listed as one of the 100 most influential telcos executives in the world, and he will tell us some very interesting figure. Jeff Pulver, anybody who doesn't know Jeff Pulver don't belong to this, and is asked to leave the room very quietly. Jeff, you, instead of telling the future, you will tell the past. You will tell how voice over IP saved your life.
Sure.
Who didn't hear how voice over IP saved the life of Jeff? Raise your hand. Who heard the story? Now this is a new record. Now 2 people didn't hear, 3 people hear. I know that nobody understands my accent, but I guess it's getting worse. What about the rest of the people? Who knows the story how Jeff Pulver's life was saved by VoIP? Raise your hand. 5. Who doesn't know the story? Raise your hand. All right. So they were sleeping before.
Okay.
Amit Shafrir and myself worked for this gentleman. Amit was the president of AOL Premium Services. He dealt with music. He was responsible, among other things, to Winamp, Nutella, another thing. John Miller is really one of the most astute internet people. He used to be the president of AOL. He used to be the chief digital officer of News Corp. He ran a VC, and he's a great guy. Excuse me for saying it, you know, but now I have no interest to flatter you anymore. I used to do it for 6 years. When I was your consultant, the fact that I continue to do it shows that I really mean it. So let's start. John, what next?
Well, for everyone, dinner, I think. I think we're holding everybody from dinner. But you want me to talk media, tech? Where do you want me to go? Give me a little more.
Whatever you have in your mind.
All right, I just did an interview a few minutes ago with Andrew Keen, so I'll stick with that. So in the big media business, which I've just left, the battleground's television. It's all about what happens with television. And television is where the viewing goes, it's where the dollars go, the euros go. So it's all about how television gets sorted out from a viewing experience and from the tech underneath, what Apple does, what other people do. That's the big game in the big media business. And I think for folks who are interested in the media area from earlier stage, which is my focus right now, it's a new asset creation. It's a chance finally to create new assets. There's enough video out there, video viewing out there, enough advertising dollars, enough distribution. New assets can finally be created, and that's been a long time coming. You couldn't do that before very easily from the entrepreneurial way. It was all controlled by the big media companies. Now there's a new game in town, and it's new asset creation.
This was short. We will come back to you. Amit.
So I think I have no clue what's next. I'm probably the only one willing to admit that.
You are not supposed to admit it. You know.
So I will tell you just the things that I find fascinating and I like, that I think will be very disruptive. So one is, I think, 3D printing, and the fact that it will disrupt many other industries that you don't necessarily think about. Shipping, small stuff that you used to order, you'll just print at home. So I think it's a fascinating field, and we have yet to see where else it'll go. I think, I agree very much with John about TV, but I think specifically I've been looking at how you have new cross-platform advertising opportunities. So imagine you're sitting, you're watching a TV, you see a commercial at 11:05 on a certain channel, and while you're sitting there, you're with your iPad and you see the same ad for the same thing, and then you're on your iPhone and you see the same thing. To know which channel you're watching, at what time, and to be able to create these kind of units, I think is fascinating, and I think we'll see more of that and be quite effective. And the last thing that I'm quite fascinated with, and I think will be disrupted, a needs disruption, is healthcare, specifically mobile health. I think the opportunities there are really amazing at the stuff that can be done. So that's just a few things that I'm fascinated with.
Good. Jeff.
The story.
Story.
So where do you want me to
Make
start?
a pause for a story. We will back with the main theme after the story.
This is new. Real quickly, do you want me to explain the ham radio stuff and the connection to how I got? Okay, fine. So when I was a kid on Long Island in New York, I didn't have many friends. In fact, my whole solace was I discovered amateur radio. My father told me his uncle was a ham, and I had no idea what that was about. So I ended up going to my uncle's office as a kid, and he turned on this box, and was magical to me was he was able to turn on this radio, tune the dial, and it was very squeaky voices. And my uncle said something which was very coded to me. He said, "CQ, CQ, this is K2QQ, I'm calling CQ." And he pauses, he says it again, and to my utter amazement, when he let go of the microphone, there was a roar of people trying to talk to my uncle. And for about an hour, I sat there mesmerized. As my uncle said, his name was Fred, and he's from Farmingdale, New York, and he gave a signal report. And magically, everybody on the radio spoke English, regardless of their geography. And I realized my uncle had the cure for loneliness. It was this, if I could just take this box and put it in my bedroom where I was, I would have friends. And it turned out when you're 9 years old, you could do anything, so you think, but a ham radio required licensing. So I had to teach myself college-level physics, Morse code, and the rules and regulations to be a ham. And I finally got my license when I was 12 and a half, and I really haven't shut up since. But my passion to communicate and to connect sort of created a pathway for my life, and I've always enjoyed connecting with people around the world. Fast forward 20 years, and in 1995, a small company in Israel, in Herzliya, a company called Vocaltech, had a great brain trust of people who who successfully provided the first platform, the first product to let people talk on the internet. And while people thought it was strange maybe that people wanted that you could talk to strangers, I loved it because it was ham radio all over again. And in fact, the first days of using iPhone, which was the first iPhone, by the way, because we called it iPhone, about 20% of the people were using their ham radio call sign. Like my uncle was K2QQM, I am WA2BOT. And what's fascinating was we were pretending to be on the radio, talking on the computer as if we were on the radio. And I became very fascinated by that. And anyway, the trouble is I had a day job. I worked on Wall Street. I worked for Cantor Fitzgerald Securities. I was an expert in fixed income mathematics. I guess maybe I still know that. And what changed my life was through a series of activities which were just natural. I accidentally started the world's first internet telephony network because I was connecting people. And anyway, in June of 1996, I go to work. And I don't know if any of you have had this experience, but I was in a 125-person department, IT department, and we had a reorg. I got there 5 minutes before the meeting. They distributed the org chart, and I made a mistake because I said before the meeting started, "Oh shit, I'm not on this chart." And the two co-managers looked at each other and said, "Didn't you fire him? Didn't you fire him?" And so 3 hours later, I got the phone call at my office. You could leave now, or we could escort you out of the building.
They fired you because you were on this iPhone instead of working.
Yeah, that's it happens.
You've done free VoIP calls.
I was promoting the idea. I was very fascinated about talking around the world, and so the company I worked for was Cantor Fitzgerald Securities. And on 9/11, they lost like 700 people, and I had the kind of job that I actually would have been there on 9/11. Just getting fired kind of saved my life. And between the day I got fired till the day before 9/11, I was very fortunate to build up a conference business which helped make voice over IP into a $1 trillion market that it is today. And I sold my business on September 10th, 2001. So I believe being lucky is okay. And as far as what's next, it's what you believe in. I think communications still disrupt us, and I think that we still haven't seen anything yet. We're just dealing at the raw potential of what will be.
Good. Usually in Israel they applaud after such a story, even you don't understand it.
Thank you.
I need one of the staffers to have a roving microphone because we are going to get the audience. So can you please call one of the staffers to come over here?
They all went home.
They all at home, yeah, because who is crazy enough, it's now 7:30 at night. Abdul Malik, can you tell us a little bit about your industry in your region?
Sure.
No, before that, I want to show everybody
story.
how many business cards you collected today. No,
Well,
you show...
A story.
No,
You told me I was in his house. Actually, 4 years ago, Yossi, whom I publicly call my godfather, invited me to a conference in next to the Ben Gurion Airport in huge. What's the name of the
Avenue.
The city.
Lod.
Yeah, Airport City, absolutely. And a room maybe 3 times as big as this room. He asked me to come and speak. I go to stage. I thought of running for Israeli elections because of the nice reception I had that day in
You are not telling exactly. You said you were afraid to come on the stage and to talk. Let's talk.
I was.
You were afraid.
I was afraid, and then I thought of running for the Israeli elections.
And then he spoke, and then everybody stood up and gave him standing ovations. So
yeah, actually, I wanted to show you some of the shocking figures because, unfortunately...
First of all, you show them how many business cards you collected.
I went to his house last week. He told me the way you do the business, you collect the cards, you write the notes, and then you put them in an Excel sheet with 6 columns.
7.
7 columns. First name, family name, source, email, country, and then you put importance and etc. So I'm following. This is the today's collection.
Nice.
Anybody collected more? Round of applause for this hardworking guy.
Because
I told him, give me a photocopy of all the cards. He told me, you go and collect them yourself.
I said I will give you the Excel sheet. Because most of you, when you look at the news about the MENA region,
MENA is Middle East, North Africa.
Middle East and North Africa. You only see, the negative images. You see wars and blood and a lot of negative images, and they are true. They do exist. But what you don't see is the other angle, the other face of the whole story. And I wanted to share with you today some of these figures because we are in a very important conference with key players. And I think this is a market that those who are not really watching it carefully, those who are not really present there and not adapting their product to cater for this market, it will be their loss. So this is what's next. I think the next is the MENA region. Look at this. 70% of the population is below 34. You don't have any nation, any region that has that kind of percentage of young people in one region. And look at the size of the market. This is as big as the US, as big as Europe, and it's a one market. So that is a great potential that exists in this region for sure. And of course, that shows you it varies from a country to another. Some of the countries are extremely young, like Palestine, Yemen, and it goes to the less young, like Tunisia. But this is a very, very young population. This country also is we all look at the financial crisis and some countries are being bankrupt, etc. There's still a nice growth that's happening in this region with 3 to 5% growth in the GDP, and the population is still growing, and the service sector is a major sector, the major contributing sector. In a country like Jordan, ICT contributes 15% of the GDP of the country, and the same thing goes around. I'm excluding here the oil-rich countries because oil is still a major contributor, but if you take out the oil-rich countries, the other countries still, services are the major contributor of the GDP in these countries. Look at the Facebook. Look at the growth of the language. Look at the internet penetration. You know, we're talking about 126 million internet users, 26% growth in 6 months, 50 million Facebook users. The percentage of Facebook members is the highest in the world in the Arab countries. Look at Emirates, Kuwait. Actually, the Arab countries are the highest in the world when it comes to Facebook penetration per percentage of population. These are the figures that shows you the potential in the country. And look at the growth in the internet for the language. Arab language is the highest growth, 2,500% growth. This is where the potential, this is where those who are not in this region are missing it. Look at Yossi asked me about these smart handheld devices or the smartphones. Look at this. Look at this. Look, more than 60% penetration of smart devices in Saudi Arabia and Dubai. You know, this is 80% of people buy phone once a month. This is 62% in the US, 56% in the UK, 80% in this region. This is not, you don't see it anywhere else. So if you are in the social media, e-commerce, mobile advertising, search engines. This is a huge opportunity that exists in the market. And okay, now if you also look at the e-commerce, it's right now you have 5.8 billion. The size of the market. It's going to reach $16 billion in 2016. I'll talk about it in a second about the online advertising, etc. But there's 32% of the internet users bought online. 32%. This is a huge figure. This is not a small figure, and this is growing, as you saw, 26% growth in the internet in 6 months. I'm not promoting Google here, but you know, these are Google figures of what's happening in the MENA region in terms of the penetration of internet per country and the usage of the YouTube and how many hours per minute, etc. All these are indicators from Google, which is a major player, by the way, in the Arab region. And all the companies who introduced Arabic in the region have seen that. Twitter, the minute they introduced Arabic, they saw the huge growth in the subscriber base in the Arab world the minute they had Twitter included. So this is a summary of the region. This is a summary of the potential. The online advertising, the mobile entertainment is about $2 billion. The digital advertising is $1 billion, and with a high penetration of smartphones. And this is a region with a high purchase power. If you talk about the Gulf region, there's a high purchase power, and actually Saudi Arabia is among the highest in the world when it comes to downloading apps or games or spending online. So this is a market that's still untapped. And last year, DLD, they introduced the founder of Tumblr. And I told him, if I give you a free advice, if you want to do something right, don't leave Arabic until 3-4 years down the line. Do it immediately, and then you will be among the first to capture this region. So 75% of the searches on Google are happening in Arabic. So this is where...
Did you listen?
No.
Did you listen?
No, unfortunately, no. PayPal, I told this to David Marcos this morning.
Did they listen yet?
They only have 3 employees for the whole MENA region. Facebook has 4 employees for the region with all these figures. I don't think this is the right business model. I think the right business model for the companies to get their act, have an office, have a team, and start capturing this opportunity. Thank you.
Very interesting. You see, I even didn't have to ask them to applaud you, Abdul Malik. Who in the audience speak Arabic? Raise your hand. Who speaks Chinese? Raise your hand.
Okay, we're okay.
Well, I think we are very well prepared for the past. Howard.
So I make my money by investing in companies at 2 stages, too early and way too early. And so to talk about the future, I'll give you both of those right now. So the too early, which I agree with, is healthcare. And healthcare very broadly, because over the next 10 or 20 years, everything we're finding out about the genome and how to personalize medicine is going to happen. But right now, we're seeing a lot of new interesting things in compliance, getting people to take their medicine. Some huge numbers, 30 to 50% of the people don't take the medicines that are prescribed, and they die, which is a bad thing. So how do you get better compliance? How do you get better record keeping? Huge amounts going in the healthcare, and the next few years are very critical, certainly in the United States with the new Affordable Care Act, but also it's going to happen worldwide. Personal health as part of that. So not only are you going to wear a Fitbit or a Nike Fuel Band, you'll actually have something that sticks into your arm that actually is dynamically measuring your blood flow and oxygen and all sorts of stuff. So that's one huge area for the future. And the way too early, which we're just doing some investing in now, is unmanned aircraft software. Because right now we think of UAVs for the horrible things they do, the drone strikes and so on. But imagine that you have a big ranch in Texas or someplace else in the world.
Who in the audience imagine that he has a big ranch in Texas? Raise your hand.
Or Wyoming or Jackson Hole. And you have to look, and by the way, they have these huge ones, or a huge farm where you have to go out and look at the land every day. Why not send up a small drone with good video and sit in the comfort of your farmhouse or your ranch house and monitor what's going on? Local law enforcement is starting to use drones all over the place. It's going to be an explosive business, but it's one of the way too early investments.
First of all, I came here to hear John Miller, so I think that's why Howard came also, yes. So I wasn't prepared for this. I was sitting here and thinking about the future and really thinking a little bit of the past. I was the second investor in Apple, so I guess I did have some prescience about personal computers. I was the first investor in AOL after it went bankrupt. I was the first investor in the cellular business in 1980, where I participated in the first lotteries that the U.S. government ran. And I have a bunch of other firsts, some that I did and some that I missed. Howard Schultz likes to remind me of the fact that I couldn't understand how New York City could use another coffee shop. My theory is the pioneers get shot in the back by the arrows from the Indians. And so I am really a cautious person, and not just because of my age, but I am not out to put drones up in Texas fields. What interests me at the moment is, we are an investor in Maker Studio, which you heard today is the largest company independent company operating on YouTube. We have a very exciting company which is now in beta, which is called Nimble TV, which is over the top, and I urge you all to keep your eyes open because it's going fully commercial in the next week or 10 days. There's been news about it in some of the papers. But for the most part, I think great opportunity today is in basic business like e-commerce. Honestly, I think there's so much opportunity using the mobile device. Mobile is, as we heard, taking over the world, and the amount of transactions, and if you go to a place like Kenya, for example, now, and Kenya is totally a mobile country, and it's mobile banking is the only way they do banking. And I think that using your mobile phone for transactions is a major opportunity. We're in the plumbing end of it. We're an investment called Braintree, which is the back end. We're an investment in Fortumo, which handles micro payments, again in the plumbing. So we are I think as a venture capitalist, to be successful, you've got to balance some of these starry ideas, and we have a whole series of seed investments with measured risk, frankly. And I would say the biggest challenge right now, and these gentlemen, and particularly John, can answer this. I think the big opportunity is for mobile advertising. I do not think that the current form size, the phone we're carrying around today is conducive to advertising, and yet everybody wants to put ads on. We certainly read about Facebook and everyone else trying to get the mobile phone advertising. So I think someone who solves that with a kind of advertising, the creative aspect of that, I think will have an enormous opportunity in terms of opening up a whole market for the advertising industry, which is gigantic, and their penetration of mobile is still very small.
Thank you very much, Alan. John, back to you. You suggested the future of TV. Can you share with us your view on the different screens and different formats? TV, large screen, desktop, tablet, mobile, incumbent TV vis-a-vis YouTube. Can you give us a more high-resolution view on the future of TV?
Yeah, and by the way, just also say I agree with a lot of the comments that were made, particularly that about those about healthcare. But back to TV and screens. I think, you know, what a consumer wants, what a human wants, is just the content that they're watching to be available to them anywhere, anytime, on any screen, and they want it to migrate to the best experience possible wherever they are. So if they're in a car, they'll watch it on their smartphone. If they get home, they want it on the big screen, and they want that to just happen. And that's a technical issue, which is more easily solvable than the rights issue. The rights issue is the hard part. There's a whole
because there are more lawyers in the right issue than in the technical.
There's a whole industry that's built on deciding it's here and not there.
More unproductive industry, you mean?
But it exists, and that's the thing. That's why I think it's going to start to break down. It has to. There's too much pressure against that, and there's too much value to a consumer to be able to get what they want where they want.
John, will it take an act of Congress in America to do that, though?
No, I think there's just enough pressure in the system now. It won't be overnight either. It's not like it's going to fall off a cliff. But it has to happen because consumers now know it's a rights issue, not a tech issue. When consumers thought it was a tech issue, then, okay, they'll deal with it. But once they start figuring out, oh, wait a minute, it's just you're telling me I can't do it. I know you could give it to me. That's when it starts to break. And then, and it will start, and that's what I think is happening. And I think that gets into the battle of OSs, right? iOS, Android, and so on, and what's going to connect all of these things. And that's a big battle, and that is one of those what's next. Is it a two OS world between Android and iOS, or do others emerge? But one of those or both of those will be the key to how that content moves around. And it's going to end up moving around, and this gets back into the last discussion like cloud and so on, but we don't have to go there for this. It's really just how does the stuff that you want get where you want it? And that will get solved technically very quickly now, and then the rights will follow.
Thank you. Now the issue of M-Health, mobile health, was mentioned like 3 or 4 times. Vitaly, would you please come over here? This is Vitaly Sirota. I was fortunate to invest in him and his brother, and they sold the company to Yahoo, but Vitaly is now focusing on mobile health. Can you very quickly show us what are you doing, or it's still in a stealth mode? It's an Israeli company, and I must insert, I have no interest in his company, but I must insert a plug for Israel, right? Otherwise I cannot go back home.
I think in terms of healthcare, while he's doing this, we're entering a new phase, which is transparency. The consumer is going to start knowing beforehand what a health experience is going to cost him, whether it's a hip replacement or whether it's going in the operation. He's going to know every aspect, and we're going to, for the first time, be able to have cost comparisons. That, I think, is clear.
First of all, I would like to say, we are talking about what will happen in the future. But it's not just will happen, we will make it happen. And mostly people that came to DLD, and it's very important to think for everybody what he can do to make it better, okay? And that's why I dedicated most of my effort in the healthcare field, because, it's a very, very important field, and it can use much more brain power, especially of the people that come in here, okay? So what we are doing, this kind of devices, it's cardiology devices, it could be Holter, it could be any other ECG connected device, it's connected to the internet, to cloud-based platform, mobile phones, desktops, everything. And our long-term target to convert it in a digital thermometer. In the same way as today, everybody has some thermometer at home and has some blood pressure measuring device. It should be ECG device as well. It's nice business today because, you know, health problems, heart problems is killer number one. A lot of people die every year from heart problems. But in the end, it's a big market already today. But in the future, it will be much bigger because most people will use it as standard, you know, telemedicine solution and personal health monitoring solution. And we're building a hardware and software platform to support it. Cloud-based service and mobile desktop applications and hardware.
So let me just make sure that people get this. Think how cool this would be if you could buy something like this in your drugstore for 30 bucks. You have it with you. You don't feel well. You strap it on. Over your phone, it gets uploaded to somewhere. No, cloud has been spoken to. And some doctor, maybe yours, maybe another, analyzes within a few minutes and gets back to you and say, go to the hospital right now, or no, just take an aspirin. And you can do this, anyone can do this, 30 bucks. I mean, I have no clue what the prices are. But I'm just imagining a world where I don't have to go to the doctor, make an appointment next Tuesday, and by that time, it's going to be more expensive. Health insurance costs, etc. I think this is amazing.
And when something happens, 2 hours, first hours are critical. And it can happen without any preparation. You know, health people can die, and if it can get help within the first 2 hours, he will be alive.
Do you have to attach all those leads? Is that what you're saying? All those leads have to be attached?
It depends.
I mean, you know, my kids bought me a defibrillator as a birthday present, which I paid for. Which I paid for 5 years ago. And my wife reminded me, we checked the battery. I mean, I find it. I think it would be very difficult to get people to carry those around and convince themselves that they should.
Thank you for encouraging young entrepreneur.
By the way, I think we are going to walk around with devices attached to us. There's no question in my mind. Embedded in your skin. We have a company called Neurovigil, which puts a single little chip on your head for brainwave monitoring and central nerve. You'll see all of that.
But that embedded is different. That makes sense.
Now I want you to reboot your talk. This was very unencouraging to him. He will go depressed now. Now you have to say the best thing about it. Go ahead.
No, I think it's I mean, if you could do it, if you could do it cheaply, if it can be embedded and I don't even know it's there, and it gives me some kind of warning, it's a knockout. I mean,
you see?
You can't miss.
Well, now you can say, Alan Patrikov, it's a knockout.
And remember, that kind of information is going to be combined with your personal medical history and possibly even your genome information. And you know, genome sequencing, what, 3 years ago was like $3,000. Now it's like $1,000. A couple of years ago it was $1,000. Now it's a couple of $100. It's going to get down to basically being free. Right, everyone is going to have the opportunity to have their genome sequenced and to learn something from that and to combine it with you know, actual live information as it occurs. And I think that is, to what other people were saying up here, I think that is one of the big things, that you have a convergence of all of that with mobile devices, with other devices. That is a big deal.
Good. Now, first of all, I want to say, as of tomorrow, we begin to prepare the list of invitees, constructive, positive invitees for next year. And second thing, we are now going to vote. Who thinks Vitale thing is a great thing? Raise your hand.
You're off the list.
Okay. Next.
Vitali, your investment right here.
Howard.
Next thing, Sami Segol. Sami Segol, I know that you have a very definitive view on the future and what is next. Can you give the microphone to this young gentleman who is sitting on the first row? Share us what you think about what will be next.
I think, like Alan, that this kind of attachments to your body must be independent for your capabilities to attach it to yourself. Because part of the problem that I see in the future is that people are getting older. Younger people are getting older. And these people don't like to handle themselves complicated attachments. So very near future. This is what I see from my visits into
I thought you will talk a little bit about the effort in brain research.
Exactly. You were talking about heart problems. I care about brain problems because both my parents.
More people have hearts than brain, you have to know it.
Everybody has his own. Everybody has his own genome. So, and today we know that stroke problems can be prevented dramatically if we get signals and rush into the treatment, into a hospital. So this is coming. So everything that has to do with the brain, I think, is going to see a huge revolution in the very near future.
Thank you. Omer Amirav, can you share with us what is your view of the future?
Yeah,
Stand up.
So my name is Omri, and it's funny, here we are in DLD, which stands for Digital Life Design. And I think that I'm the only one who actually do that, because our company is in synthetic biology, where you can actually design living things. So I wonder what the panel view is about the future of, you talk about healthcare, not just reading DNA, but designing and writing DNA and creating solution, not just for healthcare, but to sustainability, to manufacture. So,
what are you doing in illuminating trees for Christmas?
So we are about to launch a project to demonstrate what's possible today in this field of synthetic biology. So next month we're going to do a crowdfunding project to take the bioluminescence genes from bioluminescence bacteria and move it into plants to create real glowing plants. So it's possible today, it looks like science fiction, but it's not. And to show how cheap DNA synthesis become, not reading DNA, but writing DNA and creating new stuff, we'll actually do it as a crowdfunding because it's so cheap. We can just crowdfund it and do it ourselves.
Give the microphone to Mr. Harper. Harper is our expert on gadgets, etc. What is next in this frontier?
Well, I happen to agree with Howard about medical and the mobile. The sensors that are out there now, and it's not just the medical sensors, it's also environmental sensors. So if you know your genome, but you also know what the air quality is, if you also know the environment you're in, you tie that all together, and there's that Tricarder project that Qualcomm is working on, that's going to be very, very exciting going forward. Alan, I have been using Nimble TV, and I have to tell you, it's fabulous. I've been, I was on Aereo at first, but I've actually been using it here in Tel Aviv, and Tel Aviv.
I hope this is being recorded.
Using it here in Munich, and watching the news and watching the programs. I do have some suggestions for it, though. But the whole idea of television anywhere, I think the panel brought it up. It's no longer a technical problem. It really is a problem of rights, and those will have to be solved, and I hope the pressure will be there. But once you get used to having your TV when you want it, and you can actually search for it properly, it makes a whole difference.
Tell us about some new exciting gadget which is coming.
Well, I have bags of gadgets that are coming. I'm brain scans. So like the device you saw with the heart monitor, the EKG, you're going to see clothing with that type of technology built into it. It's already being used now in sports, where, for example, football players, European football players, can all go out and they have sensors in their jerseys, and those sensors are crowd connected to other players, so the coaches can see how long they've been running, what their heart rate is, what their blood pressure is, how active they are, and decide whether to keep them in or not in the game. We're going to see that type of work wearable electronics. So it's going to be, doesn't have to be implanted anymore. Flexible electronics, where the electronics are actually flexible and will be digital Band-Aids. That's all coming. I already have a credit card, that's a regular credit card, that has a processor and a keyboard and a display in a credit card, and it's just like a regular credit card. So we're going to see printable electronics, and I also happen to be a big believer in 3D printing. And you get programs like 123D Catch, which basically is a free application that you can put on your iPhone, and within minutes you can actually create 3D models and upload those. So that type of stuff is still a few years away, but it's there. But I think the most exciting is going to be mobile, digital health, and electronic payment. We had a good discussion about that earlier.
Thank you, Greg. Are you willing to give the microphone to Bill Radushel over there?
And who's doing Google
Bill,
Glasses?
are you willing to share with us your views?
Yeah, who's doing anything with Google Glasses? What do you are. So, yeah, so that's another thing I think that's going to, it's going to be a year or two of developers playing, and then all sorts of a sudden explode.
The problem with the Google Glass, though, is the display is above your head. So if you're ever talking to anybody with Google Glass, it's very disconcerting, because the person you're talking to is looking like this the entire time. I'm trying to have a conversation. I had a conversation with Sergey, and Sergey was looking like this the entire time. And Sergey, look at me. He said, yes, but I have to get the thing. So I think that Google Glass, the concept is right, but you really need something close to what Epson is doing, which is projected in front of you, so it's more of a heads-up display, like you have in a fighter.
These are details, you know, these are details.
Important ones, though.
Yeah.
Eye contact, yes.
Bill Radushel, what do you think is next?
Well, everybody said what's next. I mean, it's smaller, cheaper electronics, and then what can you go do with it, and then how can you process the data? And it's going to be, it's push. I mean, if people ask me, what do I see as the big change coming, it's push versus pull. And we're going to move to an area where it's Google Now. I mean, I think if you ask me what's the most important thing in mobile today, it's Google Now. Because you turn that on, and Eric said to me once that they had an insight at Google, which was that the best search bar was empty.
Eric who?
Eric Schmidt. Yeah, okay. But that the best search bar is empty, so that they give you the information you want before you even start typing. And I think Google Now is the first step in going that, but that's just telling us how far push is going to go. It changes this mobile device from being something that we use to get something to something that's telling us what we want at that moment before we even ask for it. We walk into the store, it tells us what's on special. It knows what our sports teams are. It knows what political events we follow, and it's telling you that. It tells you there's a traffic jam on the way. Yeah, and so push is going to be
Bill, I totally agree with you, and I think that what's interesting about that is how pervasive it'll be, but how you can infer from one area of interest to another. That, like, you learn this about somebody, and then you can infer they'll like this deal when you go into a store, or things like that, and how it becomes prevalent throughout one's experience.
I mean, confluence here is very cheap storage, sensors to matter everything, and these sensors all come out of military in some sense 10 years ago, and money started to be there. So now we're measuring all this stuff. We've now got a place to store it, and we have a place to process it, and now we have a way to go use it to give us information when we want it without us having to even ask for it.
Yossi, can I give you a new application of sensors that I just saw recently? You want new things?
Yeah, go ahead.
Where a company has developed a technology where you can counts the number of people walking by a store, which is very simple. It counts the number of people who walk in the store. It senses, where the people go around the store. It could be more than a store, it can be any place, it could be a laboratory, and how long their dwell time is at each area, and then it ties that into previous purchase data, and ultimately will tie into the POS. And I think that's clearly where things are going in terms of really being, the credit card companies want to definitely know that, and so does everybody else, as to purchase behavior.
Regarding the lavatory, I'm not impressed, because in Kinernet, few of the guys created a project which was called
Twitter Shitter?
Twitter Shitter. Can you explain what is Twitter Shitter, Jeff?
I think every time someone went to the bathroom, a tweet was created.
It's wrong laboratory.
Or they had a bird, and they were basically playing with the idea of monitoring processes.
The tweet was based on the duration of time between someone coming in and going out.
See, we invented it already 5 years ago.
Now we're talking value add, aren't we?
All right.
No, but Yossi, you know, one thing that, talking about what's next, I think about the huge amount of content that is now available, whether it's, you know, video content, premium or otherwise, e-books, unlimited amount of books, music, all available to us. What's missing, and there's endless attempts to solve it, is a great personalized discovery mechanism that will get me what I want without me spending hours of telling what I want out of all this massive data that's available. I've not seen that solved.
Amit, moving to another area, before we close the session, are you willing to share with us recent developments in deflectors?
You mean the aluminum foil mind beanie, right? Protection.
Mind-reading deflectors.
Yeah, no, I think I think things are bad. I think there's I can't actually remember what the recent development was that you sent to me, but I know I should be very concerned.
Amit is expert in mind-reading deflectors made out of aluminum foils, and if you need recommendation for the best aluminum foil, how to do it is you can ask him. It's some, what is the name of the Reynolds?
Oh, I forget
the problem that which university, Carnegie Mellon or something, made research and they found that the waves under the foil are enhanced or something like this. So we have a real problem in the frontier.
There's lots of challenges on the aluminum foil deflector beanie front.
Okay, you see, so not everything is rosy in the future. Anybody from the audience feel a huge urge to share with us his view of the future? Your chance, raise your hand, please. Take a microphone.
Stephen Sprague from Wave Systems. So the elephant in the room is programmable security in all of the endpoint devices. Whether it's a PC, a cell phone, whatever, it's what solves the rights issue. It's what solves the privacy issue for all the healthcare sensors. We need to move all of this data with both assurance and integrity and privacy. And the way we do it is by displacing the carriers as the only person with the control of the device, by moving programmable security into all devices so that every device could run any set-top box. And so you can solve the rights because the rights for Disney are identical to the rights for the privacy of everything you typed into Facebook.
Just a minute, we are not through with you. Stand up. First of all, he's not only preaching, he's also doing it. And speaking about the future, can you tell us about your great-great-grandfather?
My great-great-grandfather.
Peter, first tell him about your chicken farm in Iran.
No. So I'm Stephen. Peter's my father.
Oh, okay.
And before him was Sprague Electric, and before him was a gentleman who did two things: the electric safety systems for elevators that went above 10 stories with Mr. Otis, and the enablement of light rail systems by putting traction motors in every one of the trolley cars. First electrification of trolley, did the underground in London, and did the Chicago rail system. So you could argue, moved all the people in modern cities.
And by the way, speaking about radio amateur, Jeff, you remember the capacitors of Sprague Telemic. This was his grandfather.
Wow.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I'm sorry?
It's a genetic problem. We should get the genome
it's a genetic disorder, to invent things. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you very much for your listening.
Yossi, the most important thing that's next, DLD13.
Pardon?
DLD14, 2014. That's the most important one.
DLD14 will be 3 days before Davos on October 14 to the 18th. We have DLD in Tel Aviv. You are invited there. Send me an email if you want to come. I would like to thank this wonderful panel.